So I thought we'd start tongue in cheek, and I'm going to read a poem by Henry Reed. It's called Charred Whitlow. It's a parody, I guess. Well, I don't know if it's a parody, but it's kind of a tongue in cheek take on T.S. Eliot's Burnt Norton poem. So first of the 4 quartets Eliot wrote is called Burnt Norton, and Henry Reed wrote a poem called Charred Whitlow, and it's kind of grim and dark, which I think is kind of suitable for these days. And I'm going to try to do it with a dramatic reading, which I usually don't do. So anyway, Charred Whitlow, Mr. Eliot's Sunday evening postscript. As we get older, we do not get any younger. Seasons return, and today I am 55. This time last year, I was 54. And this time next year, I shall be 62. And I cannot say I should like to speak for myself, to see my time over again, if you can call it time, fidgeting uneasily under a drafty stare, or counting sleepless nights in the crowded tube. There are certain precautions, though none of them very reliable, against the blast from bombs and the flying splinter, but not against the blast from heaven, vento di venti, the wind within a wind, unable to speak for wind. And the frigid burnings of purgatory will not be touched by any emollient. I think you will find this put better than I could ever hope to express it in the words of karma. Karma is a proper noun with a capital K. In the words of karma. It is, we believe, idle to hope that the simple stirrup pump will extinguish hell. Oh, listeners, and you especially who have turned off the wireless and sit in Stoke or Basingstoke, listening appreciatively to the silence, which is also the silence of hell. Pray not for yourselves, but your souls, and pray for me also under the drafty stare. As we get older, we do not get any younger. And pray for karma under the holy mountain. I love that poem. It's so crazy. Can everybody hear me okay? Sweet, sweet. All right, so let's switch. I think, oh man, can we all like have audio on and just kind of talk to each other and stuff? Is that all right, do you think? How's everybody doing?
I'm good. I'm looking for a quiet room.
Yeah. Actually, I live about 200 feet from the CSX main line. So you may hear a train go by before this night is over. Let's see. Let me share some of my new poems. I got a couple of them. This one's called Paper Ospreys. One of the things I do is walk on Little Talbot Island, north of Mayport. Yeah, north of Mayport. And I have seen ospreys there hunt. Or actually fish. And they're big raptors, and they go off to the sea and fish. And one time we were there, and there was a storm that had come through, and in the middle of this dark, gloomy, just thunderhead, this osprey just went past us out to fish, and went in and took a fish and came out right with, right in front of us. So it was like a really amazing experience. So this is called Mayport Ospreys. I was reading Helen MacDonald's book, H is for Hawk, which is a phenomenal book. And she at one point says that I'm quoting from her, wild things are made from human histories. So to humans, everything is made from human histories. But she says, wild things are made from human histories. So anyway, Maple Ospreys. The last boats brought back the tide in their holds. Twilight rust on fittings resigned to old age. There, the sun's jaundiced heel. Not yet the bare kneecap moon among clouds. Earlier, the overcast flew its rags and vernal floods around vestal doom. Willets tiptoed each wave's last slow spill. Ocean's grab, sharp as cold talons. An osprey, prow-like, cuts seaward to the coming gloom. Easy past us, whom it need not flee nor stalk. What other storms don't trouble its mind? That it kills, that no wing can shelter it from chance? You'd think it covet the habitual plovers and turnstones, or from a sea green nimbus, ambush seagulls. But like the boats and us, it holds to its tack as a matter of course, and its craving is fish. Blind beyond their element, harried, dead to what shadows lurk above. It's a cheerful poem. Let's see. This one's also cheerful. It's called Dead People's Things for Sale. Joyce, you might have seen this. If you go up 17 to Georgia, there's a little town there, and there's a little antique shop that's called Dead People's Things for Sale. So I've been waiting for like 10 years to use it as a title. And Melinda and I, my wife and I, went to Gainesville in August. Tip, don't go to Gainesville, Florida in August. It's not the best place to be. Oh, so hot. And we were trying to look for the places we lived there when we were students at UF. And several of them were bulldozed over. Chance has basically taken over so much of that area. So this is called Dead People's Things for Sale. Here lies a fragment of their affection. 2 clay olive bronze chairs across a shield round table. A planter in its middle for green shoots. On it, they shared figs from a tree behind their rental, held each like a toad's pale belly sliced to marigolds, or to a knee's meager pomegranate flesh. I was there. I remember. The tree is gone. So is the rental. The block plowed flat for a hospital's garage. The table we kept for a later rending. Okay. Everybody all right? Has anybody passed out or suffered any like embolisms or anything?
No.
All right. Now this one's actually kind of a cheerful poem. Rare for me, but it's a cheerful poem. It's called Using the Scout's Handbook While Learning English. So back, I came to the United States in 1980 during the Mariel boat lift. And in the wisdom of my parents, we moved to Rochester, New York in November 1980. So among other things, good things that happened is that when I was learning English, I picked up a copy of the Scouting Handbook. And I started to read it and look through it, and I saw these guides to identify animal tracks. So I had a bicycle, and one Sunday, it was a Saturday. One Saturday, I decided that I'd go bike down Ridge Road all the way to past Seneca Park into Lake Ontario and see if I could spot animal tracks. So the poem is sort of about, it's kind of a coming of age poem sort of thing. Anyway, it's called Using the Scout's Handbook While Learning English. Not yet a full animal, no longer fully a cub. Sunlight green on me through summer's high canopy. A stream, mud-cheeked from last night's rains. From 3 decades later, I see myself, lean for my age, light-boned as a hawk, fleeing a housing project, not so much life preserver as a hurricane's next island. But today, the tallest I've ever been and growing, I think I've come for animals. From their world, mine must seem both comically unstealthy and full of sudden excitements. But I see, as I still see, both the signs on the mud and the need to read them. Their tracks attest for the handbook. And it answers. A pair of raccoons, deer, and later what I want to be a bear, but it's just a dog. The known names besides the unknown. Muskrat, grouse, skunk. And I don't yet know why I'll remember this day when I asked and was answered. When the world spoke its persistent language and I, with due care, understood. I wish the world made sense these days. It did at one point. So I'm going to read, we're about halfway there. I'm going to read just a few poems from my first chapbook, Looking for What Is in There, which came from Paper Nautilus Press. My thanks to Lisa Mangini, if she ever watches this, and to Francisco Alvarado, the artist. He's an LA artist who donated the picture for the cover, which I fell in love with. And I bugged him, and he agreed to let us use it, and then he didn't charge us anything. So I think this is the oldest poem that I've kept. I wrote it, it's called What Vallejo Calls Notre Dame Bridge. And I wrote it as part of my first semester at the University of Florida's M.F.A. program with Deborah Greger teaching that class. And C. Dale Young, old friend of mine, was in that class with me, and he loved the poem and has supported my work since then, so I'm eternally grateful. Vallejo, of course, is Cesar Vallejo. He's a Peruvian poet who eventually left Peru, went to France, became a communist, became involved in the Spanish Civil War, went back to France, became horribly disillusioned with how communism was turning out under Stalin, and was sort of kind of abandoned by everybody on both sides. But anyway, what remains of his work is amazing, and he's basically what Eliot is to modernism in English, he is to modernism in Spanish. So anyway, what Vallejo calls Notre Dame Bridge will not let him cross in peace. Its black stones breaking to white chatter like parrots. The smell of eucalyptus clamoring in the autumn rain, as if it were the tropics, Lima, 15 years before. As if Vallejo were not already Vallejo. Lush, bronze greenery on the cathedral, the market alive with oranges, sunflower hearts, sweet potatoes prized for haggling. Paris, still a budding orchid, the price of a florist's stand. White as the Madonna's marble throat, moist as a sponge dipped in vinegar. So I hope by now you see the need why we started a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because these poems are... let's see, this one's called Blucher Arendt, A Wildland Fire. This is probably my favorite poem in the chapbook. Arendt is, of course, Hannah Arendt, who wrote The Banality of Evil, and Blucher is her husband. A Wildland Fire is basically, I wrote the poem. The image is this couple fleeing an incoming disaster, a fire in the West, in New Mexico, to be precise. New Mexico, because that's where the Manhattan Project was carried out. That was the beginning of the atomic age. And you'll hear that come into the poem. The things we unleash is the sort of a theme of this poem. So it's called Blucher Arendt, A Wildland Fire. Turn off the TV. Light of the World Series. Light of Dawn Ultra. Light anything. The cherub moon on a ceiling of stars. Isaac Newton's candle. New Mexico's Stella Nova. Turn off your black Irish skin in cotton. Your hair's charged cloud on borrowed sheets. The brown girl still in brown sand. Signs of people on goat trails. Refugee or migrant. Above us, satellites fall too fast to fall. Godlike over desert bones, turning dust devils. The half-life of grit we drive through. So many lines on a map. How they gleam are metal animals. Their traces invisible as breathing. In a dim taqueria, a waitress still wading into English clears our mess. All we've seen, others have before. It's night again. Again, the moon slips further away, like our lives. That's actually a true fact. The moon is moving away from the Earth, like 1/4 of an inch or less every year. So eventually, it would break free of the Earth's gravitational pull and just go off on its own. Unfortunately, by that time, the sun will have exploded into a giant red, and it would have pretty much consumed the Earth and the moon and up all the way to like Jupiter. I don't know why I find this stuff interesting. This one is called "And a Great Part of Me Shall Escape the Grave." The title is from Horace, one of his odes, where he says that he thinks of his poetry. He's not going to die. Things are going to survive him. Horace is the guy who wrote the famous line "Carpe diem," seize the day. That's him. He's also the guy who wrote the line "Dulce et decorum est pro patria more," sweet and becoming to die for one's country, which was used as pro-war propaganda for centuries. Until Wilfred Owen came along and wrote a poem called "Dulce et decorum est," in which he takes the line and flips it on its head. Anyway, so this is called "And a Great Part of Me Will Escape the Grave." And I was hiking the Appalachian Trail in Georgia. I think it was 2013. And I came across this little cemetery just off the trail of a place called Hickory Flats, which no longer existed. It had been abandoned. It came about, Damolega, Georgia was actually the first major gold rush in the United States. It happened, I think it was in 1839. That land used to be occupied by owned by the Cherokee. And when the gold was discovered, basically their lands were not respected and pretty much they'd ceased to exist. And that cemetery is still there. And this is what caught my attention about it. Anyway, "And a great part of me will escape the grave. Yellow as the late October sun, there was a dust in these hills once, and other peoples long departed. Might as well honor the bumblebees, felling saw loud. Might as well mourn grass. What was carved has given up its hold, blank as quicksilver, the hickory flats gravestone, slate weathered smooth by scarcity and years. All had a name, a first day, a last one as themselves. No more. Still, someone has brought flowers, paper white and red, plastic, 2 per grave. And that's true. There's a little church there that takes care of the graveyard, puts flowers on it. And I thought that was rather touching. You can't even read the names anymore of the graveyard. The stones are just smooth. You can't read them anymore, but yet somebody puts flowers on them. Let's see, we have 5 more minutes to go. So I want to read 2 final poems, which I hope take us out on a slightly positive note. But coming from me, that's a qualified positive note. So the first poem is called Swan Song. This is another one of the Walking on the Beach poems. Like if you had a chance to read it a second time, you'd probably be able to pick out that this is really talking about these shootings and global warming, and how do we face up to those things, which I try to do really subtly, but hopefully it would come out on a second or third reading. Anyway, this is called Swan Song. In time, I'm sick of living with myself. Anytime soon as alibi. Rose of Jericho's odd duckling bloom. Coal, a thorn on the lungs, playing its long game. And you, a miner's daughter, in hate with her last decade, hands up like a policeman's bullet's corpse, dark with no chance of humor. What is left for transformation? This beach we walk, its few bittersweet clams on baby's ears, terse diamonds on the littoral's midden. Tomorrow, this same time of day will pass you by in another continent. But for now, you toe dig at a stone crab's shell, malted or dead. Some have looked on their children like this, or nieces or brothers. The Atlantic breathes less each year, and the tides rustle fewer coquinas, but the answer is molten. And then finally, we made it. This one's called In the Dark Time, which is a reference to Bertolt Brecht's poem of the same title, In the Dark Time. The line is, in the dark time, will there be singing? Yes, there will be singing about the dark time. In the dark time. I fix a coat from air to clothe my fears. Accept tomorrow will be full of cracks and their attendant gusts. The roof over my life may be past repair. I wait for words sent out like crows to return, even if soaked. Wings like broken branches. Buy a stranger a burger. Hand another paper money. Know they'll both stomach hunger anew. I drop each of my hours like a crumb. I won't walk this way again. My days line up like inmates and clap hands. They clap hands for me, and I sing. All right, that's all I got. And we have 1 minute to spare. How are you guys holding up?
Enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well
Thank you for
Well
coming,
done.
for showing
It
up.
was wonderful.
Yes.
Good job.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you guys for coming up. It ain't nothing without you. That's right, right?
I
A
think
poem
it's
is
time
only as
to-
good as its reading.
I think it's time to make an audio version of your poetry because hearing your voice read it really adds a lot. I enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I try to avoid the poet voice, you know, like, oh. I can't, I don't think I
No,
can do
you're
it.
not.
Yeah, it's like, and then the light was bright. Never mind. Thank you. Actually, I have a little, it's an audio chapbook which Mark Ari out at UNF put together. It's called The Season of the Dead.
Oh, cool.
And it's free. It's if you Google Eat Poets 13, which is my volume number 13, or Andy Rojas, it'll pop up. And I think I have like 8 or 9 poems that he recorded. They're much earlier poems.
Awesome.
For putting this together, I really appreciate the opportunity. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Very cool.
Yeah, everybody.
Bye. Good to